It's a holiday favourite with Aussies, but even with borders open and COVID under control, Bali is missing out on desperately needed international tourists. While on another popular holiday island, it's a very different story.
I don't think it could get much more dire.
It's a tale of two islands.
Bull of spirit, it's definitely something that is here. It's just the Fijian way of life. Basically, as soon as you come into the airport, you're going to feel it.
In the South Pacific, Fiji is welcoming back Aussies with all the fanfare you'd expect from the happy island nation. While in Bali, things are as bad as they get. Once chaotic streets, still all but empty.
We're a lot worse off today than we definitely were a year ago.
With local families struggling to make ends meet.
Our income is getting less and less. Yes, it's very hard for me.
The Balinese, they sold everything that there was to sell. They've borrowed money from everybody they could borrow money off, and they've really got nowhere else to go.
Australian chef Dean Cadell has lived in Bali for more than 15 years. His two restaurants have been closed since COVID hit. Now they're the headquarters for a crisis kitchen, helping to feed the island's most vulnerable.
There's still many, many starving people here. I think more people are hungry today than they were 2 years ago when this all began, or even a year ago.
They provide 300 meals each day and support 5 charities funded by sales of a cookbook called Our Bali, Your Bali, which Dean put together with his staff.
And honestly, if we could provide 3,000 meals, there would be a need for it, but I just can't produce that much.
Money is tight. Dean and his staff were hopeful they could reopen before Christmas with the return of international travellers, but strict quarantine rules have left the island a no-go zone.
The quarantine time came down to 3 days. Last week it was increased to 7 with this new variant coming through. This week it's been increased to 10 days. I think I can safely say there's zero international tourism in Bali at the moment.
For staff like Made, it's another setback.
I thought this pandemic didn't last this long. I guess 3 to 6 months, but I was wrong.
But Made is one of the lucky ones. He still has some work. Even with that, he's had to sell off belongings to get by. His bank has helped out too, offering support to suspend payments on his home loan for the past year.
I'm thinking about how about next year when they're expecting us to pay as normal. It's very, very hard for me. I don't know what I have to do.
To be honest, I haven't seen Bali in such a mess since I arrived 40 years ago. This is definitely the worst.
At Nigel Mason's Elephant Park, things are just as dire. After churning through his savings, Nigel says he's now run out of money to feed the herd of 30 elephants, which costs $30,000 a month.
Bali survives on tourism. Our elephants survive on tourists. Without tourists, I don't know what the future is. It's heartbreaking to think where this is going.
Celebrities like Kim Kardashian, Christian Bale, Richard Branson, even Steve Irwin visited the once thriving park over the years. But soon there may be no park for anyone to visit if tourists don't come back in a hurry.
So we're now at a situation we must get tourism back if we're going to be able to survive this any longer.
In 2019, it's estimated 6.3 million tourists visited Bali. This year, there's been less than 100, and there's little hope they'll return until next year. But over in the South Pacific, a success story. After battling a deadly second wave of COVID in June, Fiji has now reopened to international tourists.
after 615 days, which has been a really long time, to be able to welcome guests back to Fiji and doing what we love best. Everyone's really excited about it.
Brent Hill is the CEO of Tourism Fiji, where they've implemented strict COVID measures to keep everyone safe.
And we don't want people sitting in rooms if they're fully vaccinated and they're tested negative, if they don't have to be.
Travellers are required to get a PCR test prior to arriving and a rapid test after 48 hours at their resort. But for Sydney-siders Maria Azzi and her family, it was an easy ask.
And I think after having been in lockdown for 2 years, with all the stress that comes with that, we really needed a holiday that was relaxing.
Maria admits the family was somewhat anxious to travel again, but says once landing in paradise, all that melted away.
Since being here, it's actually been quite reassuring knowing that everyone here at the resort is vaccinated and everyone here has also had testing done prior to leaving, Australia or their country.
The Sofitel Fiji was used for quarantine during the pandemic. General Manager Vincent Marquette says it's now welcoming back guests, many Australians, for the first time in 20 months.
It was surreal. I actually had goosebumps. I actually opened the door of the first guest.
Something those in Bali can only dream about for now.
The Aussies, the people of Bali, their favourite tourists are Aussies. There's no two ways about it.
Bali really need tourists this time as soon as possible, especially Australian tourists.
Gee, they are doing it tough, aren't they? At this stage, Australia's airlines are planning to start flying to Bali again in March. There's more on our website.